we'll start with figuring out which way the grain goes. On your board, my grain is going the long way. So go ahead and take out a piece of bookboard and mark your grain.
Is this duck canvas?
It is canvas. A duck canvas? I don't know. There was.
My wife just bought this duck canvas because she wants to do filigree.
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I bought it for a bag that I was making.
It just feels.
It's pretty thick canvas.
I was listening over here and I heard.
And I just made direct eye contact with you two like a big lie.
Yeah.
So you went, I have no idea who you are. No idea who you are.
So there was just a question about the kind of book cloth that I was using on this book, and it was canvas. I can't remember what it in particular what it was. The canvas that I'm using was still thin enough for me not to have to worry about or to take into consideration how thick the material is. If I was using leather on these, then I would have to take into consideration the millimeter, 2 millimeters thickness of the leather, and then take that into consideration when I build it, so that when I'm sliding the book into the box, that there's enough room for it. Because if that leather is really thick and it's wrapped around, then it's 4 times as thick on the inside of where that book was supposed to go through.
Question, if you have a book cloth and you're painting it with it on top of it, so you paint the cover, what would you use to seal it since it's like going to be round into like a dot?
Can you ask that one more time? What was?
Yeah, so when you're making like a cover and you want to paint something onto it, and
Okay.
you're putting it inside a book cloth, like you say, like one of those like clamshells, what do you use to protect the surface of it so it doesn't like the painting or whatever, depending on acrylic oil, doesn't rub off? Or is it just a bad idea to paint on a cover?
It's not a great idea to paint on it, but if you're sliding it in, you'd definitely want to protect it. I think just some whatever, if you've got a fixative, or if you want the book to have a shine, like just use what you would normally use as like varnishes or something,
That's a good question.
or a wash. So if you want, there's various sheens on a varnish. It can be a matte or it can be shiny. So you would just pick whatever it is and seal it that way.
That like works with cloth.
That what?
That works with cloth specifically? Or
Well, yeah. I mean, this is canvas, so it's what you would paint on. So, but I think a spray fixative would be probably
it's pretty even distribution.
even distribution, and that you can get it super thin. So first of all, we'll start with our book, and my grain is running this way. I want the grain to continue to run in the same direction as the spine of my book. So I need to turn my bookboard over this way. And I am just going to quickly just draw a couple lines here that mark I've got it lined up in the corner. I'm just going to mark the bottom and the side of this. That gives me the lines the whole way around. And then I'm going to use my square just to make sure those lines are nice and straight. So these are just the first lines. Now I can get my book out of the way for just a little bit. I don't need to keep it here in front. If we take a look at the diagram, the length of this, so from the top part to the bottom on this one was book plus 5. So I'm going to come down 5 millimeters here. And this will be the new line for my book, or for the box here. And then the back one was book plus the board. So if I'm coming out this way, the book board is 2.5 millimeters thick. I could easily just, I think I threw all my scrap pieces away. You can put down your book like this. I don't have any small pieces. Does anyone have a small piece? That's good, thank you. So I could do this like that and then just put this on the side and trace that down. Or I could come in with my ruler and measure out those 2 millimeters. Thank you, Caitlin. All right.
It's 5, right? 5 millimeters?
This one is coming down 5 at the bottom. And then this one is just 2.5. The thickness of your board. So I know I'm just going to draw a couple arrows here to remind myself that this is the line that I need to work from. When it comes time to cut this. So if you started in that top corner, then you're just adding 5 extra millimeters down from the top. So coming down, and then just that extra bookboard width on the side. And then you can start cutting that out. When I was working at home yesterday, I was working with a really dull utility blade, and I didn't realize it. Kept grabbing and snagging the fibers of the bookboard, and it was really frustrating. Then I realized, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. I can change that blade, and then once I changed the blade, all my problems were solved there. So change your blades as soon as you start to see in your work as you're cutting through. It should just cut right through those fibers very easily, like butter. And if it snags it as you're pulling it down, then you know that your blade is not that your blade is dull. So I just cut out that first piece, and of course I want to double check to make sure that everything is in good shape. I've got 2 millimeters right there, the 2.5 on the back side, and 2 at the bottom. Once you've double checked that, then you can use that as your template.
Me talking about myself, stitching, crying, sobbing.
Oh, Professor.
Yeah. So as soon as you were talking about yourself sobbing and crying, then
Did you post a video about, for like the student textbook, the cover video? Yeah.
I did. It did not get done until yesterday, but it's there.
Okay, yeah, there we go. I was ready Saturday.
Sorry.
It's okay, it's fine.
Is that why you were sobbing? And
I was sobbing and crying, and I was like, where is that thing? I felt so accomplished. I was like, I was like, yeah, where's my card? And then I felt even worse, because I was like, now next week. So like, this is so close to being.
I like how we passed that.
Yeah, that would make sense. Two sides of the box.
Me too.
Didn't even occur to me. So yeah, one.
One.
It's
Side choice.
Just don't look at it from any other angle.
Isometric
Yeah,
box.
don't even touch it.
Just look at it from that angle.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
You want to find your book cloth or something?
Not the Rolodex or shit.
all right. On to the next step. You've got your 2 covers, the broadsides here cut. They're matching up very well. One of the things I need to change with our diagram up here is so I added the 5, but I actually needed to add 5 on both sides. And so what that means here is, because I wanted the 2.5 millimeters in between, but I wasn't thinking about it when I wrote that. So we're actually, we're on the diagram, it shows that it's being glued in between here. We're going to glue it right on the top, and that's going to give us the 2.5 millimeters we need. Now this is the important measurement here. So look at how I have my book sandwiched in between the book boards. I'm not squeezing it to make it as thin as possible. I'm just holding them loosely so that gives me a good sense of how thick it is. Then I'm taking this extra piece of book board. I'm putting it down here at the bottom. This is going to give us the thickness that we need when we wrap the book cloth around. So it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but you can see that I'm adding just a thickness of book board to this. I'm going to line it up into the corner and see if I can get this arranged in the camera. So I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to make a little mark there. Right here's where it's at, and then I'm going to use a straight edge on that. To extend it. Then I'm going to bring my cover back down as, what? I'm sorry, what was that? Yes. So I'm just putting my book board on both sides of the book. I could come in and measure this if I wanted to, but I'm afraid I'm going to squeeze it a little bit, so I'm just going to keep my book boards on both sides. I'm going to take this extra piece of book board. I'm just placing it down here at the bottom. So that's giving me that extra thickness that I'm going to need for my for the book cloth when I wrap it around. Then I'm line that up to the edge here. And then I just take my pencil and mark that spot, which was right here. And then I'm going to use my cover material, line it up on that line. And then I'm using that to mark the line so that it is the exact width of the book, of those cover pieces. And then I'm going to cut that one piece out, and then I'm going to double check it before I use it because I'm going to need 2 of those, because I need one for the top and I need one for the bottom.
Do you use the same, do you remeasure the second bottom part, or do you just like copy it?
I'll just copy once I double check to make sure that it's the right size. No, I'm having them run the long way this way, so that if they did warp, they would want to warp up. But everything's going to be glued down on these ones, so it should be fine, especially with the short grain running this way. If you have those pieces, you can do that, but you don't need to worry about it for this. All right, so this looks like it works really well. It's a nice fit. I'm just eyeballing it right here. So I'm going to use this to cut out that next piece. Just going to lay it down right where it was in consecutive here. If you're making this slip box for all 3 books, then all 3 of your books need to be stacked on top of each other. So if I was doing this, if I was making a book box for this set right here, a slipcase, I would have all of these books like this. I would then put my pieces on the outside and mark that the same way. So you can create your book box or your slipcase for as big as your book is, or if you're putting 3 books into it. All right, the last set here. Okay, so if I can have your attention with this one, just so that I can answer any questions as we go along. Now, I've got this set up here. So when I set my book on its side, this is the open end that I can see. I've got just 2 millimeters of gap at the top of my board. Everything is sitting down at the bottom the way that it should be. I can pull this up to the side, and pull that up to the side, and it's the same. All right, I can hold those and everything is where it's supposed to be. Now the next step is to create the piece that goes on the back side of this. A little extra measurement has to go into this because we want that back piece to cover up this entire side. Does that make sense? Let me do it this way because this is the side that we're going to be looking at. It needs to cover up all 4 of those edges. So it needs to be the same, it's the same width as those top and bottom edges that you made, but it is the you have to measure from the top of your board, the outside edge of that top board to the outside edge of the bottom board. So for me, that's 130 millimeters when I'm looking at this. If you cut it the same size as this, it'll get glued to the edges here, but it's not going to be able to reach both of those tops and bottoms, and that's going to give it extra strength, so that we need that back piece to be this size of rectangle right there. So how are we going to do this? Well, very carefully. We'll take this. We don't even have to measure this. So I'll take my book. I'm going to line it up here at the edge. I don't even need to have my book in there. It's just helping me hold on to all the pieces. I can squeeze it. Take both of those end pieces, put them out here at the end. Trace that line. Now, I said it was 130. It was actually 129 is what I needed there. So this is the length of that piece out here, which will reach over the edges, and then everything can get glued together. But it is still the same thickness as those other pieces. It's just a different width is all, or length. So go ahead and cut that piece out.
And this is the top and bottom of the box. And this is
The-
going to be inside, like in
No.
between.
No, so this is, everything is going to get glued on. Sorry for the confusion from that one. Everything is going to get glued to the outside edges of this.
Oh, outside.
And so then this is going to get glued right on the top of that.
Got
It's going to cover this entire space on the top. All right, so here is a better visualization of this, perhaps. That piece goes right on top of all of them, so you won't see the ends of it. Okay, it's time to start gluing these together. So, we're going to start with these three pieces right here. All right, so there's a couple ways for you to glue down here. One is to just completely freehand this and hold it up on the sides, because we've got the base to hold on to. Would probably work as well. There is also, you have the if you've got tape, which is generally what I do. It just helps everything stay in place the way that it's supposed to. I just put a little bit of tape on the edge so that it and wrapped around so that it holds it up. But it also allows me to flip it open so that I can put glue where I need to. Now, this gluing, we need to have glue along this edge right here. Oops, too much glue. And let me wipe that off real quick. So I'm going to just put just a little bit of glue on this leading edge. Try not to have it drip down, make a giant mess, but I'm just spreading that glue out. And then I can flip this up and glue it to the edge. Look at how I am gluing it on the outside edge of that broad side. See how it's flipped in? It's not being glued on top of the broad side, it's being glued right to the edge of it. After I get that put into place, then I'm going to come back here and put a little bit of glue along that seam and just spread it out. If you get lots of extra glue in there, just use your finger or a bone folder to kind of pull that glue out, to spread it out. We don't want it to create a big bump in there, so just spreading it out. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll put this piece of tape down. Going to bring this in, line it up at the top and the bottom. Pull the tape up. And then a little extra glue in that seam. You can see here I'm pulling it away just a little bit. Make sure that I get a nice line of glue on there. Separate it from your, because the glue will come out through the edges here. Want to make sure that you separate it from your newsprint from time to time, just so it doesn't get glued down to your newsprint. Now, these are not square, these corners. You can see this one is bent in just a little bit, and this one's a little wonky too. But that's all going to be fixed once we get this glued onto here. And if your lines are straight, if your cut lines are straight, then that will square everything up enough for the box. Now, I want everyone to take a look at this just for a moment, because what this may be something that happens with you. I did not do a perfect job of squaring those lines up. Take a look at that gap that's on this side right here. Right here. This side is perfect. This side is not. That's really bad, actually. It's not great. That I don't know. That's what a millimeter. That is what a millimeter will do to you at the end. Like if you're not perfect with your. But let me flip it this way. Let's just see. Can I go this way? Oh my gosh! Would you look at that? Oh, so there's something wonky with my cuts, but they match up this way. So I'm just going with it. Right? So that millimeter in terms of visual was not enough for me to catch as I was cutting it, and but as it gets glued into the box, I could definitely see it. But if I flip it around, then all of a sudden everything looks like it's square anyway. And we'll call that good, close enough for road work today. So this is the side that's getting glued onto. So I'm going to use my glue. Oops, actually, I'm going to use my glue here and add glue to this outside edge because this is going again on the outside.
I just got that. That's rude.
I didn't actually mean that. Considering my father, who is 72.
Okay. And then I will also I need to put a couple extra pieces of tape on these corners just to hold it up. If you did one corner at a time, you probably wouldn't need the tape.
He has a heavy Bronx accent. He's like, let's call this after. Like, he says shit like that, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I think he says so goofy. And when I talk to him, I reflect accents, so like I talk to him with an accent.
Put glue in all of the seams here. Got to cut 2 extra seams on this one. The bottom and then on those sides. Spread those. Spread the glue out so that it's not thick and heavy in any spots.
They don't know what I look like. They only see Curtis's very polite hands and his nice ring that you should buy off his store at CurtisTaylor.com. That's the plug you wanted.
Ricky, I am trying to concentrate here. And so I didn't catch whatever you were throwing there, but
You plug in your online store.
all right.
See, it was actually, it was good. It was good and fruitful.
I would be interested. I didn't know I had an online store, so
Okay, my bad.
So what CurtisTaylor.com are you buying from?
Okay. Scam.
Etsy, that counts, no?
Yeah.
what's that?
Yeah, so you sell wedding
Cards.
cards?
Yes, on the Etsy. The proper address, Ricky, is Curtis Taylor Art. gmail.com. I'm not interested in sending business to other people. All right. So after you have those 3 edges on, then it's time to get your to glue the top on. So you'll notice here that I'm trying to get this seated correctly here. It's going to go on the inside of this box like that for it to fit the way that it's supposed to. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to work in reverse. We're going to put glue on this, and then we're going to set this down on top of it so that you have a level surface to push down on those corners, those edges, to get everything glued into place. So, kind of working blind just a little bit, but we're going to put our glue here on the edges. Going to put just a couple pieces of glue here, tape on the 2 sides and the back side, just to pull it into place when it's all done, to hold it. So I'm going to turn that over. Line everything up, get everything pushed into place where it's supposed to be. Grab those tape tabs, pull it up tight. Just using bookboard, this long piece of bookboard, just to push it all the way back, make sure that everything is down even. And there's the shell. Okay, the next step here, everyone, is if you have some tape, just go ahead and take that tape off after everything is set. It does not take a long time for PVA glue to set, but be careful as you're pulling it. Don't get too carried away as you're pulling the tape off. You don't want to. It'll start to pull that top layer of bookboard off. So just pull it carefully. You don't want to make a big hole in it. And you want to avoid creating any kind of divots or anything that's going to show through your book cloth when you cover your box. Okay, we're not done with the glue yet. We're going to go over those seams from the outside this time. And I am pushing glue down into it so that it's a solid white seam that I can see. If there's any holes in it, like air bubbles, whatever, then continue to press glue into that until it is it's all solid.
Wow,
So-
okay.
So, who is that? Is that Ricky over there? There is something to be said for that method, certainly, if you can learn from other people's misfortunes, then that's helpful, right? I mean, that's why we're here. We're all discovering some new ways to mess up. Now that I have that glue, I'll turn it over, but obviously I need to put it on something so that it's not sitting right down onto my paper. It gets glued to that paper. So I'm just putting that spool of whatever that is, tape, underneath, just to lift it up just a little bit, and then continue to do the other side. In 5 or 10 minutes, this glue will be set. And then we'll be able to go on to the next step.
So your process is correct. I mean, that adequately is extremely intelligent and how we voting bill me.
know what the definition of insanity is?
Same thing over and over again.
Different result. Now, continue to do it.
History is so
Self-aware.
really aware. That's the one thing I am.
Self-aware.
Self-aware. I look into the mirror and I go, yeah, I'm aware. Or I get upset. Yeah. When I first started like going like through everything, I remember one time I woke up and I was like, I was on the floor or something. I walked into the bathroom and I saw myself in the mirror. I was like, who's that man? And then I went, whoa. And then that was my voice, and my voice was lower. So I was like, I experienced psychosis for like 1 split second. Yeah. Every single time, like I was like in my head, I'm like, yeah.
Well, we just won't be able to do the exposure. Okay. Just I won't be able to instruct with the exposure going. Okay.
In fact, you learned ASL. It's so kind. I learned ASL, so I went up to listen to myself.
I do that with my, I have one friend who I was talking to for 6 years. For me? 6 years, and I said, something close to 15 years. And it's not, it's not my fault, it's very down
You just like got lost. Something was lost.
I'm gonna be so real with you. After I started comedy for like a year or two. I just like didn't leave my house unless it was absolutely necessary.
You walked out, like all your friends of like 4 years. They're just like, yo, August. You know, like, hey.
Yeah, no, I just like didn't go out for a while. And I was like, yeah, no, I can start going to places again. This is fine. It's just that I just don't go anywhere right anyway. It sucks. I wouldn't recommend it.
Automated summer anymore, actually, so yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not like, I would want to travel and just.
It works, yeah.
Yeah, on the-
Or it goes longer than this.
And it's not like that, it's like, we were like.
Okay, so as you're looking at your box and you're getting everything glued in, you may not be happy with some of your corners and how they match up. But there is a way to adjust those.
Wow. Great tell.
Oh, there you go. using sandpaper or an emery board. You see this corner I'm not crazy about. Doesn't quite match up the way that I wanted it to. So I'm just going to use this emery board, file it down. If you have sandpaper, that will work the same way. I'm working heavily in that space where it was raised up too high. And then I start away from it and start to feather that in, taper it. There we go. All right, let's move on to covering our book boxes. Got some threads here to pull off. All right. So you need book cloth, obviously that is approximately twice the size of your box in all of the dimensions. So if you take a look at what I'm doing here, this is just my book cloth turned over. All right, so I'm going to start with my book in this position on this side, and I want to make sure that I'm going to need to have book cloth that stretches over the edges so that I can tuck it in and glue it into the inside of my box. Now, actually, before I get to that point, I should probably I'm going to encourage you to carefully take your book, slide it in, but be aware that there's some glue in here. So just line it up to make sure that it does fit. Before we get to putting book cloth on this, and then it's too late. Then you're going to need to make another book that would fit into it as opposed to making the box that fits your book. All right, so I've got these two, I've got my book board or my book cloth that's about twice the amount of book cloth as my box. So I'm going to, first of all, I've got some loose ends on this book cloth, so I'm going to just draw a line here and square this off with a straight edge so I know where I can start measurements. I'm going to use, this is roughly 30 millimeters, I think this is what this is right here. 25 millimeters, which is about 3/4 of an inch, somewhere in that neighborhood, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to put my straight edge along that edge of the book cloth right over here, and then put my box right up against this. This is going to give me plenty of paper to fold around the edge and tuck into the inside. So that's where I want to start. I'm just going to use my pencil and I'm going to draw that line. Give yourself 25 millimeters at the shortest or the smallest amount, up to about 30 millimeters would be fine. Let's see, Angie, for yours though, because yours is so wide, when the books come out, you'll be able to see deeper in that. So I would maybe double this from 20 to 60 millimeters, somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, then I'm just going to mark where the box sits. So I'm just going to bring my pencil and mark the back corner. I'm going to flip this up. Going to mark the spine. Going to flip this over again. Line it up. Right there's the front edge again. So now I have these lines. They're a little harder to see up there on the screen, but I've got my left edge line here, there's my spine, and then there's my right edge. I also need to make this that 25 millimeters longer over here for the wraparound. So I'm just going to center this by eyeballing it. I've got plenty of book cloth to play around with. Going to mark the top and the bottom of this box. And then I'm going to follow that line all the way across the paper.
I am aware. I currently mourn human skin on my hands. I have been shedding 4 separate occasions like I was fucking covered in yellow. We're really unhealthy. Yeah, that's why I still forget. I just like to start so much of that. It's like a leopard's a cat. Just literally looked up and said, blue, and then looked away. I'm gonna cry. I will cry. Wah wah. Real wah wah hours. I just, you know what? This one was our class. So we reading the same
Once you have your box sketched out on the left to right, flipping it, now we need to do the same up here. So we're only using the short edge of your box. So just tilt your box up on its edge. Do that both at the top and the bottom.
Not really. Kind of always.
Once you have your box all traced out here, so you can see that I've got my lines for the one side, the spine, and the other broad side. Then I also have the lines up here that are my that are the width of the box the whole way through. So just make sure that you've got all of those lines drawn out. Once you have those lines drawn out, you can cut off the excess paper. So for me, that is all of this extra up here, all of this, and all this down here at the bottom. It's always a good idea to mark those waste areas so that you don't accidentally cut out something that that you'll need later on. So just use your scissors, straight edge, cut along those lines. Now I have a fair amount of excess book cloth all the way around, which is good. I don't need to worry about it too much. If you were getting close to the like you were using up what little left you had, then you definitely want to start gluing your box onto your book cloth, starting with the spine. That way you can pull this up to see how much you have all the way around to make sure that you have enough. So that's what we'll do here. I'm just going to glue up the spine. I'm only putting it on the flat side right now. I'm not worried about the edges. We'll worry about that when we start folding the paper. Put it into your lines and press it down. Go ahead and turn it over. Use your bone folder. So I've glued the spine down. And I've burnished it. So I'm just going. Doesn't matter now really which side you start with here. I'm just going to put glue directly on the box. Making sure that I get plenty of glue on these edges up here, so that when I fold the paper around the edge and use my bone folder on it, it gets a nice tight corner and it stays glued down. And you've got to be able to, so you've got to put glue along that edge in order for that to happen. The rest of this, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to spread the glue around, just reaching to the outside edges. We'll be wrapping around the top and the bottom edges in a few moments. So I'm just worried about spreading this out. I put a fair amount of glue on there. I'm just spreading it a little bit, allowing it to dry just a tiniest bit before I fold the box over, lay the box down onto the paper, and it should match your pencil lines that you have traced. Just pushing down on the inside for the moment. Turn it over. Make sure I don't have any glue on my hands. Use your bone folder, the flat edge, and press it down. Make sure that it all has good contact, that there aren't any air bubbles in your underneath the cloth, that it all gets glued down tight. I'm reaching my bone folder to the inside of the box just to press down to make sure that everything is nice and tight. Obviously, we can't push too hard with the bone folder on the top, otherwise it'll collapse our box. And then go ahead and do the other side.
I will actually shut you down so hard. I'll walk in. I don't wake up to your grandma looking at you. No, I I will actually piss myself. I will be so calm down. It'd be scary. Did you not see the trash can?
It's not even trash anymore.
No, you haven't seen the waiter size
It's
unit.
fine. It's fine.
I'm looking forward to listening to this conversation again. You may be far enough away from the microphone now.
I only imagine what goes through your head when you have to listen to this a second time. Kids, sure say stuff.
Sure, out here saying words.
Yes, I am. I currently am. Thank you. What is that? Dude, that people be just using the craziest fucking loot. I don't know. It's not. That's like a relic. I touch it, I use it, just never get poisoned by it.
The craziest way to get something like
I touch it, I usually have like wither effects on my body for like the next like 15 seconds. That gives you the wither effect. 100%. I kind of want that number.
The other one that
See?
All right, let's go to the next step here. So we've got the front. We have both the broadsides glued together, and we've got the spine. Everything is glued in nice and tight. Oh, somehow I got a little bit of glue on my cloth. Arrgh. So be careful. I reached inside and I grabbed something that had glue, and I touched it. The tops of these are, to glue the top and the bottom, are pretty easy to do. All we're going to do is push this in, the top edge. If you are a present wrapper, then you have done something like this before, where you get these nice crisp edges. So we're going to pull those. I'm just going to lay them, make sure everything gets burnished so that it's a crisp edge. That's and then go ahead and glue that corner down. Don't glue anything else down, just the corner. So I'm just putting in a little bit of glue right here, and then I'll push that back down. I also need to get glue on the book cloth so that it's coming out on these corners here, so that all the book cloth gets glued down together as well. Push it back down. Burnish that book cloth so that it gets glued together.
You didn't include the cover, the cardboard for the cover, just by literally just holding it on itself and then you glue on the edges.
I put glue on the edges, and then I also needed to put glue in between on the paper and this part, so that the paper gets glued together as well. And I'm burnishing it just to press it down, get a good glue adhesion there.
You brought plastic plates to try it.
Yeah.
I guess. Stop supporting it. He's done already.
Listen, we got support each other.
No, we don't. Crabs in a bucket. I'm throwing a pipeline.
Well, I'm like, I support that.
You already know my stance.
Okay, after you have that, so one of the things, take a look at just fold these over. There's no glue or anything else on this. We're just doing sort of a dry fit on this. Look at how this inside edge, as it comes around, how close it gets to the edge of the box. I don't want that to be so close to where it starts to double up or fold over on that. So I'm going to just clean up this edge just a little bit, and I'm going to use my my ruler. I'm just going to measure in about 5 millimeters from that edge. I'm going to connect those lines and cut that hole, just trim that down. That'll prevent there from being from the cloth butting up too close to the corner of that. Cut it straight. And then when you fold it over, you should have about a 5 millimeter space there. And then when you fold the other one on top of it, you'll notice that that goes almost to the edge as well. So we're going to cut another 5 millimeters off of that. This one, it may be best to use, if you can get in there with your ruler, to use your X-Acto knife, a straight edge.
You know, I was genuinely worried about that too. I didn't want to say anything about it. It didn't really connect. I was just like, the part doesn't bleed. That's how bad it is. It became organic and just died in my hand. Holding it like it entered dust, obviously.
And before I put any glue on my box, I'm just bending the book cloth over the edge and burnishing it just to give it a nice crisp fold. Can you see this right here on this little tiny corner? See how that's sticking out just a little bit? You can see that white book cloth. So I hate that. So I'm just going to snip that corner off. I don't think I have good. Oh, my scissors did work. And then now, as it's folded over, it's not going to be seen at all. Now it's time to glue those. So take a look at your edges. Like this one, I use the straight edge. That's a really nice edge. This one, I use the scissors, and it's kind of wonky. I'm gonna hide the wonky one with the nice one. So just kind of keep that in mind as you are planning on how to I guess the order of which you're gluing things down. And we're working with book cloth and glue, so just be careful so that you don't get glue on everything like I just did. And if it ends up on your workspace, get it wiped off right away so that it doesn't become a problem. So I put glue on the box itself, and then I'm putting glue on just right up to where the book cloth is. You can see that, right? I'm not trying to get any glue up there. I got a little bit on it, but that'll be hidden. And then I'll brush some glue on the inside of that fold. And because I already went over it with the bone folder before there was any glue on it, there's already a good crease in that paper. So now all I have to do is just press it and hold it down. Now the process changes up just a little bit. I don't want to put glue on the book cloth that I can see. I want to put it on the backing paper. That way when I fold it over, I don't accidentally push glue out past here or brush glue out past where it would be covered up. So I'm going to put glue on the back side of the book cloth. Going to brush that tab again. Get out as close to the edge as I can, as my bristles will allow. Fold it down and press. I'm going to turn the box upside down. Put even pressure on the work mat. And I'm just burnishing it with my finger, just keep pushing back and forth. And then start over on the other side.
Yeah. You're lost. I haven't even been on the map. Oh, I missed sign. The boss is falling apart as we speak.
It's more cool either way.
So I'm here.
Favorite employees.
You know what I'm talking about? You've now been promoted. T-minus maybe 6 months depending. Colin and Holland, yeah.
We had to refer them to Colin and Girl Holland. It's kind of go answer because we all have the same name. And Holland is the same. We're all Holland. Well, Holland came out and she's like, I don't know how to get my class last time.
It's like I'm gonna kill him before at this point. It's like someone needs a. It's like when I see another Ricky, I'm just like, okay, we just have to fight now.
And then you go,
Like no, it's like there's so I was when I was working, there's another Ricky, like the Ricky's like Ian, this is whatever I was, or like Ian, but I'm like 5'5", skinny, like no weight,
no chill.
no chill, and then Ricky, they call him Big Ricky because Big Ricky was 6'5", he was yoked to the gods, does not speak, but like. I'm glad that I'm your neck here then. Okay, great. I'm trying my hardest right now. You look like surrounded by just like scraps of fabric up here. A lot of glue.
Yeah, you're definitely not gonna turn around and do the clamshell box.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, these are.
You hit a stick of butter.
I did, yeah. I ate probably like half.
All right, let's get to the last step here. Now, if you rolled your, if you covered the box the same way that I did, you are now to this point right here. And you've got an inside flap, I guess, for lack of better terminology. It's problematic, I guess. But then this one too. Then you've got this outside flap here. So we're going to work with this inside one to get started with. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push that until all of the fabric goes into the box. So start pushing with the flat or the broadside edge in, and continue to push from the middle all the way out to the corner. What this is going to do, if you start from the middle of this, like here, push it in, continue to push all the way to the corners. Look at how nicely that wraps around the edge of the box. Is there an autofocus on this? And so then what I'll do is I'll take my bone folder and I'll move around those edges, and I will try and pull that cloth down as far as I can into the box, and then use my bone folder to crease those corners so that it is a nice tight fit. The fabric isn't loose and bulky in there. And then I'm just running my fingers over the edges here just to try and push that down as far as I can and pull that in tight. Once I've done that, then I can pull this back out because it has those creases on it, and then I'm going to apply glue to the paper. So I'm going to just start at the edge of the box. Notice that I'm also putting glue on the book board and pulling that glue out. Oh, don't get too carried away and get glue on your box. Okay. Pull it down after you have the glue on it. Pull it down, and especially pay attention to those. I didn't put glue on the outside edges here, right there, and right over here. Should be using the smaller brush on this one. Make sure that I don't have any glue on my fingers. Push it back down and pinch on that very edge. That's going to give you that nice, crisp fold right around the corners. Push that down and hold it until the glue starts to set. Once it starts to set, then you can lay it down on the table. Start running that bone folder. Can't get a good view of this for the camera, but I'm just running it along the edges just to make sure that I spread the glue out and that everything is glued in nice and tight. Pushing down. I'm pushing down and out at the same time just to stretch that book cloth all the way down. And then you'll do the same thing as you glue the second flap, though. There is a slight change of procedure. Notice I'm not putting any glue on the book cloth itself, the stuff that's already folded over. The reason that I'm doing that, so I want to make sure that I don't get any glue on that blue on the book cloth. Now, this one you'll need to be very careful as you're folding it in because you don't want this edge with the glue to touch the top edge of your book cloth. So fold it in just a little bit as you start to pull it down. Pull that cloth in Be very careful not to touch the glue along the edges there. And once you get to that point, then it's just the same. Use your, just pull and stretch it along those edges to give it a nice crisp.
I'm sorry, I thought that was one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, like, really, I was trying to great communication. I lost out.
All right. I'm going to go over this last bit real quickly just so that it's in the on the video here. Since it's 10:34 right now, so we don't have a whole lot of time. Is the pull strap. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I am going to give myself a nice straight edge. Going to make it double thick. The strap that I showed you in my book was just a little bit different than what I'm going to show you here. I'm actually going to fold, give a nice crisp edge on this. And then I'm going to fold the other edge into it. So it comes right into that edge. And then it's going to get glued in. Think of this as a hem of sorts. I am hiding the edges. Then I'm going to, once I have my folds in, I'm going to do, going to put a layer of glue right down the middle so I can glue this big strip down, press it. And then, similar to what I was doing with the other book cloth, I am going to paint on the backing, the paper backing of the book cloth. Now I have a nice strap here. Now can I have everyone's attention up on the monitor real quick? So I have just folded this over. It was double wide from this, then I laid the ruler down and I folded it over just to give it a nice look. There's one seam on this now. The edges are, they're in good shape. This is going to get placed into the box. Now there's a number of ways that you can address the end of this. I am just going to cut at an angle here on these ends. Put a little bit of glue on the end of that. The reason I cut those ends down is because I don't want the end of the I don't want the paper to show through the edge, the backing, like it did on that one corner a little earlier. I'll lay that down like this and give it a just put binder clip to hold it down. Now the strap gets pushed all the way down into the bottom of the book. You want the top of the little loop that you're going to grab to be just visible, not hanging out a long way. So I'm just going to kind of position that right there with my with the binder clip. Use the ruler just to kind of push it down. I can see where that line is, and then pull this back out. The line of the bottom was right about in here. I could also measure that out. It's 140 millimeters deep. I don't want it glued that far down, so I'm just going to glue from the end here about a third of that, 2/3 of that. Oops, and I put glue on the wrong side of my strap, of course, because I'm trying to speed through this. I'm going to turn this over. Put a fair amount of glue on this. And then flip that back over. Slide it back in, being careful not to get glue on my book board. I'm going to continue to push it down until it hits all the way down to the bottom of the book box. That's the important part. And then I'm just using my ruler here to press that down. And then when your book is in there, let's see here. I don't want to put the book in just because the glue's not quite dry yet. When you pull this, it'll slide it up just a little bit. And then when you push your book back in, it will slide back down. And just this tiniest little flap is sticking out. So that's how you can end up putting a pull tab on your box.